passe. Oh, l'artiste. Super. Encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Welcome to the Uniformed Handball Hour. This is Brian Campion speaking to you. After a very long time, I can't remember the last time I was on the podcast. I think it seems like almost a few months now, but I'm joined, of course, by the golden voice of handball, Chris O'Reilly, and Denmark's favourite son, Alex Kulesh. Hi, boys.
Hello, Campo.
Hi, Brian.
So how were your summers?
Good to be back. Good to be back. So that obviously means my summer wasn't that good if it's good to be back here. But
The highlight of your summer coming back.
Mine was good. Yeah, I just came back to Gothenburg after like almost 4 weeks away. Saw you, Brian, in Vienna after a wedding. Saw you, Alex. We played some beach handball together in Ireland. And I was in Edinburgh at the Fringe there. Went to Turkey on a real holiday. Haven't done that in a while. And
I think. And what did you have for dinner every one of those days? Just to give us a bit of extra detail here.
That was a great summer. Really good summer. How about yours?
Yeah, it was good. Nice and hot. I mean, I don't know. The older I get, the more I start to think that I don't mind spring and autumn. I'm drifting towards winter, you know. It happened to my parents as well. They were like, I used to love summer when I was younger, but the older I got, the less I like summer. And I'm kind of starting to understand that a little bit now. Being sweaty all the time, sitting around for no reason is not that great. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to winter kicking in. And winter kicking in, you know, means handball. So that's also good.
You planning a move up north again?
No. It's plenty cold here, so don't worry. But for all the listeners out there, if you're wondering why I sound so silky and beautiful, is because I'm just like the most professional on the podcast. I still have all my equipment, whereas the other two guys have kind of lost theirs in different countries.
We have it will be back at some stage. Both of our mics will be back, and it'll be back for just in time for the season. We'll have lots of great podcasts to preview the season, starting with a nice transfer podcast. We'll go into every league. We'll go into the Champions League. We'll go into all the big stuff. But for this podcast, we're just going to talk about stuff that happened during the summer.
Yes.
Which I suppose it wasn't that much handball that happened.
There was loads of handball.
Well, since we finished our last podcast and we talked about the African Cup of Nations, we talked about the underage championships, you know, it's this gap in the middle where not much happens. The teams are back in action. They're starting their pre-season. They're getting going. The excitement is starting to build, but in terms of actual handball, not too much. So we have come up with some topics to talk about that have excited us over this period. Who's going to start?
I'll probably start because I have the best mic. But the best thing is whoever starts also says their two topic first, and I'm kind of worried that one of you might have the same topics as me. So if I get them over with, then you're
one topic at a time. One topic at a time.
Yeah, because
I can't go straight into two.
If you think, oh God, I need to put my topics. I can think of something right now. So should we go straight into it, or do you want to say anything else?
Let's do it.
Okay. Actually, there's something I want to say. Just as we have a bit of a labour of love over the last few years, one of our platforms, Instagram, is on 1,977 followers. So if you're listening to this and you don't follow us on Instagram, please give us a following, because I heard anyway, once you're up to 2,000, then everyone feels like you need to follow that account. So if you could just give us a follow there, that'd be wonderful. Twitter's fine, but somehow
we might even start posting on it again.
Yeah.
We post
graphics.
You know, sometimes
we post the graphics for every podcast. Well, look,
we post the graphics. We
not
do.
bad, you know. So
all right, Campo,
okay.
What have you got for us?
So
show and tell time.
I think probably the biggest name of the summer in men's handball has been a young man from the Faroe Islands.
Oh, fuck.
We can combine our efforts, Chris.
Yeah.
Ollie Mitton. I don't know how you pronounce it properly, but I think that'd be something along those lines. Ollie Mitton, who has been on everyone's lips, Twitter lips, or a beak maybe, if in that context. He's been on everyone's beak over the summer months. He's seemingly now, from what I've been hearing and the clips I've seen, he's going to be the best handballer in the world come 2, 3, 4 years maybe. He scored 17 goals versus Sweden in the under-18s Euro. 17 goals versus Sweden, 13 goals versus France, 7 versus Spain and Slovenia. He had something like 11 goal average per game, which is absolutely nuts. And Denmark must be licking their lips, because you know the Danish are with snatching up these players, so they must be absolutely loving this. But
I don't know. This generation,
That's my next point.
wants to beat Denmark.
Yeah.
They want to beat Denmark, and they might do it. They might do it based on some of the
I
results.
have some notes here. My notes are Denmark licking their lips, and then next thing is, but also not. Because there does seem to be a change from the Faroe Islands. When you think back to when we played against the Faroe Islands back in 2011, and you remember that game well, boys, I'd say. Getting absolutely hockeyed in the first half, and then there was someone came on then in the second half and then scored a quick 3 goals, and all of a sudden there was a bit of a game. I remember in the hall people were saying, God, all of a sudden it's a bit of a game now. I can't remember who came on, but it was just someone who lit it up a bit. But anyway,
Was it a young left back?
yeah, it might have been.
Sligo?
Yeah. And I think you scored 6 goals in that game, Chris, didn't you?
Were you player of the match from our side?
I was in the All-Star team. I didn't get player of the match in any of the games, but I did get in the All-Star team alongside a certain right winger from the Faroe Islands, who ended up being snapped up by Denmark, Johan Hansen. So yeah. Anyway, Brian, you were talking about your amazing game.
Yeah, no. Moving on from that anyway. But when you think about where they've come to now at this point, where they are seemingly, or they seem to be getting this talent that's coming through, and they can finally start really sticking it to some of the other Scandinavian teams. So I think they really do seem like the forgotten son of the Nordic countries, and they can maybe finally now with Ole and of course Skiptagotu. How do you say that, Chris? Skiptagotu?
Skipper.
Skipper. Let's call him Skipper.
I've coined Skipper.
Yeah.
He's going to be Skipper until he wins Player of the Year and MVP and everything.
You'd imagine now with Ollie and Skipper that they finally have a bit of a backbone of a backcourt there.
Could I just add a point here? I don't know if either of you caught this, and it is around Ollie Mitton. But it is another Twitter interaction. We're going straight into the nerdiest of nerdy topics. So let's go straight into Twitter as well. And that was Berta Servas, our good friend of the podcast, traveling to the Faroe Islands. You did see that.
I did see that. That's my next point. I was just like, that guy has absolutely no chill. He just sees someone's scoring a certain amount of goals and he's on a plane to see you.
Well, the thing...
No, but I really the thing is, in reply, Emil Berggren, the sporting director of Sävehof, who have an apparent connection with the Faroe Islands now, replied being like, "You don't have enough money." And I am almost 100% sure that Berta Servas was there on a regular holiday, but he just wanted to mess with people to say. And actually, that Twitter interaction between Berta Servas and Emil Berggren got pretty heated because Emil was just like, Berta's like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And Emil was like, "Oh, there's only one player you could be looking after, but you can't afford him." But my friend, I already now know you signed him, and I gave you my sincere gratulation for this. A very good decision. It is for him also a very good choice to join you. He has to develop step by step. Thank you. From Emil Berggren. I just love it, and I'm just certain that Bertus is there to, just hang out, eat a bit of shark, and see a few cliffs.
It's very, very good timing, though, isn't it? I mean, just on a random holiday in the Faroe Islands directly after the Euro.
Yeah, I reckon it's he's realised that he's missed out on both Elias Ellison Skippagotu and Oli Mitton, and now he's looking for the next one. Yeah. He's like, all right, I got to get in there before Emil Berggren does. And I was just going to say that they're both in the Save a Huff team this season, which is great for Faroe Islands as well for the national team because they're both going to be playing together every single day, just like they did throughout their childhood. They're cousins, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Aren't they all?
They're all cousins, yes. Because I interviewed Oli's older sister, who's also a Faroese national team player, and they have another brother who's also a handball player, and they're all cousins with the skipper. So yeah, it's both under 18 and under 20 teams finishing in the top 10 of the Euro, and that's
It's actually nuts.
Remarkable.
Faroe Islands are tiny. It's a tiny, tiny nation, and it just shows what a good structure can do, and just getting these kids to live on a handball court, play with both hands, play with their heads.
Good structure, and also it's actually the number one sport as well. So it'd be like 50,000 people live in the Faroe Islands. So like a normal sized town in Ireland, but it's like maybe something like Gaelic football. Everyone's just playing Gaelic football, and that's their thing. That's probably the only equivalent I can think of, but it is still absolutely incredible.
The European League starts this weekend, the first round, and Save a Huff are playing in it. So I hope to be able to go and watch them play against the Romanian team, Putaisa Turda, and hopefully see both Faroese boys in action.
After a long summer for the boys, because didn't Ollie Mitten play
He played both, yeah.
the 20s and the under 18s championship, and going into a full season of senior handball?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Made
they'll
us
look
something
after
special.
him. They'll probably look after him well.
As a young lad as well, can take it.
But 80 goals in the under 18 championship from Ollie Mitten. The next best was 61. It's
Not even close.
ridiculous. Yeah, so good times for Faroe Islands, and it's about time as well because we've been banging on that drum for a while. So next stop, qualifying for Euro 2024.
But if you're going to make one prediction of where he ends up at his next club, so after Save a Huff, where do you think it would suit him, or what would your prediction be, so people can clip it up afterwards? And
well,
Kiel. I'm saying goes to Kiel. Although I did also read a interesting interview with Nikola Karabatic that was reposted on Handball Planet in English and originally posted on a German magazine that I can't remember, who just said, don't go to the Bundesliga. It will destroy you. He talked about his time there and how he basically was over the line of risk of injury the whole time.
Yeah,
he played in the Bundesliga. He said they won the Champions League with 8 players somehow. It's this incredible intensity that's just not good for you. But at the same time, he's still playing at the age of 38, and it hasn't done him too badly. So maybe it's a way of building your body to withstand even the most intense pressures, and that's something that Ollie will do in the future and lead Kiel.
my gut feeling was Flensburg. That's my.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We think that. You think a club would try and sign both of them, Elias and Oli? Or are you already giving up on Elias? Is he like yesterday's news?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Elias.
The new hot girl at
He
the
was
bar.
pretty remarkable as well.
I mean, signing both of them would be absolutely incredible, really, wouldn't it? But for some reason, I think they're going to probably go to somewhere in North Germany. I don't know why. I just think like when you come from the Faroe Islands, going to Sweden, and then your next step will be go to something that's not. They're not going to go to Barcelona or anything like that. So, and I can't see them going anywhere Eastern Europe or anything along those lines. So I'd imagine it would be Bundesliga. I think Flensburg would suit them as well.
I think French handball would suit their style. Both of them going to Nantes. There you go. There
you go. Yeah. All right. And that concludes the uninformed Faroe Islands hour. And
now to the rest.
On to the rest. Chris, you want to give us a topic? Oh.
Go on. Yeah, I'll give you Alex.
Okay, I'll go with my topic, and that is the naming rights of the EHF Champions League
Careful now.
I just want to talk about the stereotype that I think marketing companies or any company that wants to sponsor handball, they have some sort of stereotype of a handball fan, because the two new sponsors for the EHF Champions League, so there's one for the Champions League itself. The full competition is Machine Seeker, a marketplace for secondhand machinery, and then the EHF Final Four is going to be sponsored by Truck Scout 24. You can scout some trucks 24/7, I believe, is what their tagline. Then you add that on to Liqui Moly, who sponsor both the Bundesliga and the French league these days, an oil supply company. So really, everyone just wants to sell big machinery run by nice oil to handball fans. Is that what we want to buy? Is that what handball fans want to buy? Big machinery?
Well, speaking as a EHF Champions League commentator, there's nowhere I'd rather go to scout machinery or indeed, what's the other thing? Trucks?
Seek trucks. No, you mixed it up.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, then Truck Scout 24.
Come on, Alex. If you've never come in from a night out on the town and you're like, what'll I do now before I go to bed? You know what? I might rent a truck. I might buy a second-hand truck. Like, you go straight onto Truck Scout 24 and then they'll sort you out that night before 4 o'clock in the morning. So,
yeah,
I know what you're laughing at.
It's fair. I do like coming home after a night out on just pouring myself a big glass of oil as well. Just Liqui Moly, nice greasy glass just to finish off my evening.
Goes well with a whiskey.
But doesn't it suit handball, though, that we're sponsored by big oil companies and trucks and all that stuff? We're big machines and we're looking for machines. And we're, men get in there, real greasy
oily. There was a bit of a Graham Souness there.
Yeah.
A real man's game.
Yeah, he took it out.
To be fair, they are sponsors for the men's side of the Champions League.
Yes.
So
All I'm going to say is I hope I don't have to say it every single time.
Good luck, Chris. That was my brief topic after, we spent a lot of time on Faroe Islands. So we can...
My other topic, I did have Ollie Mitton and Faroe Islands in there. Another one I had was the Women's Under-19 World Championship and the no resin ball. Oh, gosh. I know, Alex, you tweeted...
The ball of cash. The ball of cash that Mustafa has supplied.
You thought the Faroe Island segment was long. Here we go now.
No. I just... Like, Alex, you tweeted on our account with, a great example of it, the ball slipping out of a player's hands when trying to take a penalty. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't watch too much of this championship, mostly because I kind of out of protest against this whole thing. But what I did, I saw a lot of highlights on social media and stuff, and it just looked it looked like the players were so uncomfortable and they were playing a different type of sport. Like the way they were throwing the ball. Highlights were like fawning over all these great saves, but they were just really bad shots because the players couldn't always know exactly how the ball was going to be shot or how much control they had. And I don't know. I'm scared. Like, if that's is this the beginning of the end in that sense? Like, maybe teenagers can get away with it, but even at 18, 19, as we all know, the hands get pretty sweaty, and then that is the beginning of the end. Then,
speaking as a man who has grown up his whole life with extremely sweaty hands, I can't think of anything worse than a ball like that. And I've tried that ball, or maybe a previous version of that ball. A teammate of mine has had it, and again, it works at the very start, but when there's just a bit of moisture and a bit of sweat in the air in the game, it just doesn't really work. And I think again, it changes the game completely. Imagine wingers trying to take shots. It just limits absolutely everything that you can do there.
For me, the most mind-boggling thing of the whole that whole non-resin ball thing is the fact that it got as far as a tournament like that, where like you could just put
it's still going.
No, well, put it in a training session. You're like, oh, clearly doesn't work, because after 20 minutes of training, you're like, oh, this doesn't work at all. You didn't need to. I mean, to get onto a stage like that already, where you're at a final tournament of an underage category, but still that I got that far just says a lot about the motivations maybe behind the whole project in the first place. That it's not really about finding the correct technology, because I don't think you're going to test something like that that you would find out after 20 minutes of a training session. You know what I mean? So I just think it's
I do think, it's not as bad as, that highlight that we posted where someone just dropped the ball. It is still handball. The game is handball. It may be not. It takes away some aspects, but I don't think it's. It makes it horrific for people to play.
No, but I think if you talk to some of the players who are playing, they're like, I didn't feel comfortable with that ball at all. I'd imagine anyway. They're like, I just didn't feel it wasn't sitting right with me. I'm sure they would just say immediately, and you could have found that after a training session, be like, what would you as a player choose now? Would you choose the non-resin ball or a ball with resin? I think almost 100% of them would say, of course I take the resin ball. And I don't see the whole. I mean, the resin aspect of handball is one of the most unique things that we have in terms of marketing the sport. I think it's only rugby it is the only other sport that uses a little bit of resin on the ball, and it's such
pole vault
or pole vault. But it's such a unique aspect of handball, and people or handball fans love the whole culture around resin, and it's such a thing they're missing out, and they're trying to get rid of it. I don't think so. I think it's something that handball players wouldn't put up with. Going back to what you said, Chris, earlier, like that it is the start or the beginning of the end of resin. I think people would just revolt. There'd be riots in the streets.
The only thing I would say is that it is a focus on emerging markets in handball. Even us playing in Ireland, I think there is no longer a court in Ireland that allows resin, because they just don't clean the halls. And they don't want to do that, but it does. It makes the life of a hall owner, if you're not used to it, if it's not designed for handball, like a lot of the countries which love resin, even in like lower leagues in Germany, they don't play with resin. And if you're thinking about South America or Africa or Asia, countries where it's not the norm. Kind of not having resin and having an alternative is something good. Yeah. It's positive. At the same time, you need to have a balance there. You can't just force everyone to play with this ball, because it's going to be inferior than the game that is played in the nations that are standing today and know how to play and take care of resin.
Yeah, it's training wheels basically.
Yeah, fully agree.
But not for an underage final tournament, though.
No. I think that is taking it a bit too much. I mean, obviously these teams had a lot of time to practice with it, but it must have been such a pain in the arse to like adapt to it. Because think about all these players; they're going to go back to playing with a normal ball now in senior women's handball around the world. So. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if anything, it might have just stunted their development a little bit. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan.
Plus, if you win a championship like that, it'll always be a bit of an asterisk beside it. Are you one with the googly ball? I don't know.
Congratulations to South Korea, by the way, on winning the championship.
To be fair, South Korea dominated that championship. Yeah. They really dominated. They were fantastic.
Yeah, maybe they cracked the code, but yeah, overall not just have a look and decide for yourself. I mean, it just everything felt a bit more awkward and slow at every moment. So, Campo, it's back to you.
Back to me. Well, on the 23rd of July, the handball community, especially the nerdy handball community, was greeted with a very sad tweet from our friend of a podcast, Rasmus Boysen, when he talked about that he would more than likely have to give up playing professional handball. And I think the outpouring that he received was well, first of all, justified, but just shows you the community that he has built up basically, well, not basically, completely on his own. I mean, he is the closest thing handball has to Fabrizio Romano in football. And he's our own Rasmus Boysen. And I think for him personally, obviously, I mean, he was our first guest on the podcast way back in 2017, and he's been on it numerous times. He's always been very supportive of us. So I think it was rough to hear that he's going through that, because he is Mr. Handball and his whole life revolves around handball. So I can't believe what it must be like for him to give up the sport he loves before his time. And yeah, I think it's fair to say from all of us that we're always here to support him, whatever he goes through, and it was rough news for everyone.
But he does have a new role in his childhood club, Skjern, as a marketing in their marketing team and sales team. And there is a clause there that if he does recover from the concussion, he is able to come back to the court as a player. So fingers crossed that things get better on that side as well.
It's concussion, right? That he's been struggling with long term. After an in-game incident last season, and I mean, hopefully he will be able to come back at some point and play. I mean, it would be really sad if he never got to play again. And something tells me he'll be back in some form or another. But in the meantime, it's really good that he has landed on his feet with a job like that as well with Skjern, which is a great club, and new beginning for him. And I just imagine him playing the same level in Denmark when he's able to come back as Alex. And I just want to see that happen. Alex playing on the line in attack with Rasmus Boysen in the centre of defence beating the shit out of him. That'd be a good time. Or maybe now, like when he recovers, we can get him to play some beach handball with us and convince him that it's a great sport.
That could be a good one. Yeah, it could be a good one.
Alex, do you want to take up the next one again?
I have two small points. One is, so we talked about the Faroe Islands with their small population and how they're at such a high level. But if you talk about a nation and the amount of people playing in that country, Spain are outperforming everything by such a wide margin. They got to the final of the European Championship Senior. They won both the under-20s and the under-18s European Championships. And you mentioned that, in Faroe Islands, it's the main sport. Really, Spain is still grappling to get attention on handball again after its glory days many years ago. But they just have their amazing system that just churns out these amazing players that all play the Spanish way, and they churn out amazing teams that just win. And it's not superstars. There's no real absolutely amazing standouts that I can mention right now from all of those championships. It's just their system, their coaches, their amazing style of handball, their amazing defense, and they just keep doing it, and they're just going to keep doing it for a very, very long time. And I'm just happy to see that. So that was my little praise of Spain, if we haven't done it enough already.
Do you think at a certain point it'll reflect on the club scene again? I mean, the club scene is a different beast altogether because it relies on financial power to get these teams kind of competing in Europe again and challenging besides Barca. But these players are obviously going into the Spanish club system for a while. Some of them then move on. Spanish players are very good at moving to other countries and flourishing. But do you think at some point some of these teams will be able to form something from these players coming through and make them a force to be reckoned with in Europe?
I think they have to stem the flow of tide towards France, because I think all of these young, good players that maybe are not at the highest level, where they end up in Barca or the top clubs, but are still incredibly good players, are right now just propping up the French league in many ways. There's a lot of talented players going to France, and then the Spanish league itself is just really localized. So it is, the players that play in the clubs are from the region. Something like Bidasoa Irun is a club just from the Basque region, and they're all playing there the same in clubs around the country. And there hasn't been, they haven't been able to gather a few of these talents together in another team to really make a splash, where I think that is possible without, too much monetary value needed to gather a few of these young stars. So yeah, don't know. I don't think anytime soon. There still needs to be a bit more money in it, and a bit more kind of forward thinking.
A big problem in Spain generally is, obviously, I mean, there's nothing new, but the gap between football and everything else is just so insanely big. And I feel like handball in Spain took such a massive hit when Atletico Madrid kind of stopped their handball project. It kind of seemed like that was almost like a nail in the coffin for the ASOBAL completely, because it was just Barcelona left. And then for options for players, either going to Barcelona, or then the gap then after that then was so big, a lot of players then kind of, I think, went, well, I'm not going to spend my career being a martyr for the Spanish league or for the ASOBAL. So I think it would need almost, I feel like the Spanish league definitely needs another giant in there to make it a bit more attractive for players to move there. But for the moment, it's either Barca or nothing, really, it feels like. Or you go to Irun as a retirement package, but it doesn't really feel like there's much else there in terms of options, which is a shame.
A couple more points on the international club scene I've got. First of all, we have a Mexican team in the Super Globe for the first time in October.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Club Ministros, who won the North and Central American Championship, much to the dismay of San Francisco Cal Heat, who I think they beat in the semi-final. There was seemingly a bit of controversy there, and at least according to the Cal Heat side, they were not happy with the refereeing and with a supposed illegal player on the Ministros team, who then magically disappeared for the final. However, I wouldn't read too much into this when you consider like players in this and the Super Globe in general. It's kind of just like bring whoever you want to these things, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no real restrictions there. Like, you don't need to play a full season for the club to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think it was Mexico's time to send a team after having 2 American teams in there. Good luck to them. There's 12 teams in it this time for the first time. It's expanded. Yeah, somehow the Super Globe just keeps on going. That's next month, or in October even.
But I do want to give it up to Mexico, because there seems to be something happening with handball in Mexico from a real grassroots level. It's really great to see. This is a huge achievement, the Ministros qualifying for a championship with all local players who just picked up handball playing in Mexico, grew up there, and are now competing at a really high level. The Mexico national team also had a really impressive qualifiers for the World Championship, where they actually beat Cuba. Again, I think it's a huge rise from where Mexico were a couple of years ago, and it just seems like something is happening there. I think in terms of actually watching the teams, I don't think it was technically the highest level or physically the most impressive specimens, but they just got it done. I don't know how they did it, but they still just got it done. So you have to give it up to Mexico for, building up handball from grassroots, and hopefully in many years we'll see something going on there as well.
Yes. The only other thing I have is I mentioned it before. The European League starts this weekend. Who's going to win it, Brian?
With the European League this year.
Yeah.
Jesus, put me on the spot here.
Okay, no. Okay. Of all the teams in qualification round 1, all right, there's 2 rounds to qualify for the group stage. Which of these teams do you think is most likely to win it?
Well, because you had Benfica last year, they came from qualification round 1, and then we also had Nexe also came from qualification round 1.
Exactly. Yeah. So have you got the qualifiers in front of you?
I think so.
Or should I
run through them anyway for our lovely guests at home?
I don't need to run through every single team that's playing in the first round of qualifiers on the European League.
There's not so many. I'll go through some. Okay, I'll give you a short list. So there's an all-Norwegian clash, Kolstad against Drammen. It's a big test for the new Kolstad boys. Alp Lahard are playing against Eurofarm Pellister's second team.
Yeah, see that.
There seems to be a women's match in here. Bayamare against FTC. The men's teams of both of these clubs that are more famous for the women's team.
Mata Lekai, who's now gone to FTC.
Right.
That was a big move. So maybe FTC are making a bit of a move on the men's side as well.
Yeah. Here's a one for you. Lemgo against La Rioja. That's a good first round game. Faroe Islands, Severhof. That's one team against Pataisa Turda. I mentioned that earlier. And Cuenca from Spain against Bjerringbro. So that's another interesting one. So any of those teams tickle your fancy, Brian?
I don't know, but I mean, I as an Austrian, I'd love for
as an
Austrian citizen, I meant to say, sorry. I would love for Hart, obviously, to progress. And I've always been a big fan of Cox. So if Hart come up against Cox in the next round, I'd love that. That's that's some stiff competition there. So I think that's a great advertisement for the European League. But to get back to answer your question seriously, if any of those teams are going to get to the final again this year of the European League, it only can be Lemgo, no? I'd imagine from that group of teams.
Maybe Severhof. Are they good enough? They tried for the Champions League, so...
Yeah, I think Severhof and Lemgo are probably the two best chances there, I imagine. Bjerringbro are just the type of team that'll get knocked out now straight away for some reason. They just have an absolute horrific game, and they're just like... Or they'll win this game and then lose the next one, and then they're just like out.
All right. Anything else to touch on before we let this one go?
Just that we will have episodes with a lot more relevant content coming up, including a roundup of all the transfers that have happened over the summer. The biggest impacts. Will probably and hopefully have Rasmus Boysen on for that. Then we will preview every league as we have done in previous years. We'll try to group them, and actually, one thing that we didn't mention was the Seha League that is actually going on. That is the only handball that's going on. But
I think that says more about that than we need to.
Yeah, I think that usually makes it into our season preview, but it hasn't even made it into our pre-season rambling. So we'll leave it at that. And we'll get ready for the Champions League, which is kicking off very, very soon. So all of that to come to give you a big roundup of the full season.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Chris. That was the Handball Hour. We'll see you next time. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Sayonara.